if you would.
Everyone, should we go ahead and get started? I know this is what you wanted to be doing today. Coming down.
How do you know that?
Yeah, right.
All of our dreams.
All of our dreams, right? So I'll call the meeting to order. And any questions about the minutes from September 27th or changes? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So, the fun that we're going to have at this meeting is to review the 2025 proposed budget. And Robin and Allison, all involved, have put together, and sorry, Greg, what was your name? Put together a great analysis for us, and this year over last year, and next budget year over this year's projected numbers. So it's all very good and gives us a good background to approve next year's budget. And also threw in some comments on the variances and what was driving those variances. And Robin threw those in there. Or I guess Greg, somebody did at the last minute, so I appreciate that. So why don't we start with page 3? And Greg, are you going to walk us through these?
I am. Page 3. Okay, so the summary, and we have the detail behind it and some other supporting schedules. Certainly, I'll kind of point out the highlights here. So that the first part of the budget analysis is what we're projecting our year end to be, which is 12 months from January to December of 24, to what our budget was to this year. And in these buckets, you'll see what we projected and then what we budgeted for, and I'll talk a little bit about those variances. And then, you know, the bottom half of that is, again, what we projected for this year for 12 months, and then what we're projecting for next year. So you can kind of see what those significant differences may be. So again, trying to just, you know, certainly talk about these 5 buckets. If we want to drill into the detail a little bit more, certainly would be happy to do that. So overall projected net deficit, again, that is really the overall net profit, if you will, or revenue over expenses, whatever you want to call it, losses over revenue. You know, our budget, right, we budgeted this year about $1.2 million loss. 2 big pieces of that was that we anticipated our fee revenue to be quite a bit less than what it has historically been in the last couple of years. Now, when we did this budget, just kind of circle back, we did this budget, I believe, October of at the same time last year. This is almost before we knew for sure whether Fairlife was happening.
Yeah.
Right.
So we received money in the last quarter from Fairlife, and then we also had a big portion of that to carry over this year. So that is really what's driving this overall kind of change of that number. When we put the budget in last year, we weren't sure about Fairlife. It was close. It was probably at the 10-yard line, but it wasn't. We didn't know about it yet. So where last year we budgeted $2 million or $2.5 million of net revenue, you know, that didn't really include Fairlife. Okay.
And what do we add at the end of the year? 4 million?
We're anticipating really being, again, right? Like what we kind of have thought was, hey, the pipeline was certainly softer, right? So traditional products, traditional closings through October, it was about $500,000, right? Normally that's been about $2 million just with, if you take out all the big stuff, right? Now, if we take that $500,000 where we are today, we're anticipating 3.7 million coming in from Fairlife this last quarter, which is really going to get us to that $4.5 million number through the end of the year. So that significantly changes the overall landscape of our profitability. That we're going to anticipate quite a bit more fee revenue than what we had projected. That's the revenue side of it, right? So we're going to be quite a bit over, you know, a couple $1 million over our revenue than what we have projected. On the expense side of it, the big number there is the workforce development program, right? When we had done this last year, we had a lot of things in the pipeline, a lot of programs that we supported. It's always hard to predict on how fast the programs can get up and how fast they submit to us and how fast we get out the payments, right? So last year, we at this time, we projected about 1.9 in workforce development expenses, and we're gonna be at about 2.9 this year. All right, so that's $1 million the other way, right? And so if our revenue, if you just look at the overall net deficit, we projected a $1.2 million loss, but our revenue's $2 million higher than what we projected, and our expenses are really $1 million. So that net $1 million is the reason that our budget loss is going from 1.2 million to basically $178,000. Those are the big drivers of that, of those numbers, and that kind of explains the variances of the overall picture of the organization. Because there are some variances in other numbers a little bit, but those are really the two things that move the needle. We can talk about, oh, this is up 20,000, 30,000, those kind of all cancel each other out, but overall, the big pieces are the fee income's up 2 million, and our workforce development is up $1 million, so that net is the $1 million difference in our overall projected loss that is less than what we had anticipated. Kind of summarizes everything. I could drill in deeper on a little bit more of the pieces to that. Of the detail on any of that. Anyone have any specific questions on that? No? Okay.
Okay, so we'll move on to page 4, which gives us more detail going forward.
Yeah, I think page 4 and page, I still want to go talk about, I think the second half of page 3, which is where we think we're going to end up, our projected, but also where we're budgeting for next year. That's the bottom of this, the page 3, okay? Again, we're projecting a small loss this year. Next year, we're projecting a loss of about $714,000. Again, the big pieces of that is that we're anticipating our fee revenue, again, to be quite a bit less than what we're projecting for this year. Pipeline is soft, right? The past few years, we've had a couple significant projects that have carried us into places that we probably have never seen before, right? And so that has gotten us there. Without those bigger items, somehow traditionally we've always kind of done a couple $1 million of fee revenue. But when you kind of front load over the years and you kind of keep going back to the well and you look at what's in the pipeline, even a $2 million revenue as it stands today may seem, more on the aggressive side, right? But somehow we always kind of get there. We're still proposing that number, in terms of our balance sheet and our position. We still have quite a bit of resources to support a loss, even if that fee revenue doesn't come in, right? But I want to be realistic in a standpoint of every year in October, we're like, pipeline looks soft, and every year we kind of seem to figure out a way to get it done, right? And I can say all we want is pipeline is soft and things, it seems like it's quieting down, but historical data should also influence how you're budgeted. Somehow we should,
for sure,
right? We should, but somehow we always get it done, right? And so I still want to stick with that $2 million of fee revenue that we have kind of historically have budgeted.
Do we, looking forward, just off the sheet for just a minute, do we see bigger projects to the tune of Lysaco and Fairlife and any whispers of a mega project in the
that's
pipeline?
literally always, the $1 million question. There, on the positive side, with the New York Smart I Corridor Tech Hubs announcement, there's a lot of attention being paid to the region in terms of the semiconductor supply chain and looking at potential spillover economic impacts coming from the Micron project down in Onondaga County. But this is all speculation in terms of like what we're actually seeing in conversations and like applications being floated. We're not seeing mega projects at this time. And I wanna temper any optimism because, you know, the economy, the economic outlook, while things are, I think, moving in a somewhat positive direction, small business landscape is starting to look good with the lowering of interest rates. The project pipeline has been soft because I think a lot of businesses are taking caution and not wanting to move forward with ambitious plans given what's going on a global scale, and you know, there's a presidential election underway right now, so things are just it's a head scratcher. So I think
is
we're
2
right
million
to be,
too much?
I don't know, I mean, I like Greg's point that, you know, we're looking at we're taking a kind of a weighted average, I guess, of what's happened in later years, and so I think it's a safe bet. And I hope
we're gonna hold you to it.
Of course. And I hope we overshoot that number, you know.
Which we generally do.
Which we generally do, right? So like, although we may feel and we say, okay, we don't see it, but past results should also influence your decision on, hey, we gotta stick with that number or someone. There's a balance of your gut feeling, right? But we've had gut feelings of less, and we've always done that and more. And, you know, maybe the next, I don't know, Fair Life is out there. That we haven't, it hasn't even, right, that's what, you know, that's, you know, and that's possible. That's certainly possible.
And that
right?
budget amount hasn't changed that much in the last bunch of years. Even when we had Amazon and then Fairlife, we didn't say, hey, we should. So I think that's what you're saying. I think that's wise.
Yes.
I'm not willing to bet a pension check on this yet, but I really think that what you're gonna find is there are going to be two groups of people that could be heading this way: climate refugees and social policy refugees. So I think could get very interesting over the next couple of years around here.
Yeah, and that raises an important point about need for housing projects, which we'll continue to discuss with our governance committee and the full board. And you know, we want to be, as an industrial development agency, easy to work with, and you know, remember what's in our mission statement about focusing on what's good for the economic development, workforce development in Monroe County. As we look, you know, to use that lens to look at projects, and remember that a lot of these companies, like the Fairlife project in particular, we're dealing with decision makers who have their pick of many different locations all over the country and the world, and you know, we want to make sure that we're competitive.
And it's interesting that you say that. I know somebody who came into town last week and is desperately looking for a new townhouse, newly constructed townhouse in Pittsburgh. None.
Right.
Zero.
Yeah.
Coming from a state that has now suffered catastrophic issues.
I've been reading about what's going on in Florida, the fact, you know, Florida has the biggest net migration from upstate. I think it's in Florida and the Carolinas. Like New York State lost its third place status in 2015 to Florida because of all the New Yorkers that moved to Florida, and many of those homes.
Well, I have a neighbor who has a place in Florida, and I was chatting with her, and they are going to renovate it and sell it. I just can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Homeowners
I
insurance.
I hate to
hard
see
come by.
that as, I'd say it, I don't want to, you know, say,
No, you don't
I
wanna
want
wish
to
it on
encourage that,
anybody.
but, you know, the bottom line is here, the weather doesn't kill you here. Even though we did have tornadoes for kind of the first time.
Yeah.
In like forever.
We get a little bit of
So,
snow.
You know,
But yeah, it's a climate safe region, and that's true of the broader kind of Great Lakes, and if that's gonna be true in the next several decades, so you're right, we should be positioning ourselves to
Ton of water,
accommodate.
total cost of home ownership, I mean, our taxes are high, but our property values are low, I mean,
We don't have the fires or the earthquakes.
when I retired, I looked all over the East Coast, and I could have saved some money,
Hurricanes.
particularly in Tennessee, but when I was there, looking at the subdivision I was looking at, there were 3 tornado warnings. So I
Never mind.
scurried back to.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I'm
It's
saying-
important, cause it's all connected to our finances, it's all connected to, our economic impact. We wanna be open for business and friendly to good projects that will move the needle for the county, and that will continue to keep our financial outlook strong and our ability to support good workforce development programs and good community development programs strong as well. So that's why I'm glad that we're in Greg's capable hands.
You guys
Just
have
makes
done all
this
the hard
stuff
work.
up, you know? We don't know where it comes from.
And I would say the last big piece of the puzzle here for 25 is that we do anticipate, even with our workforce development, we do anticipate that spend being a little bit less. We've kind of incorporated the Empower program. You know, last year we spent about 600,000 of Empower that we're kind of shifting into our workforce
Are we?
development,
I saw that.
right?
Yes, because it just makes sense, it's a
It
workforce
does make
development.
It's a total
Yeah.
workforce development
Yeah.
initiative, and so we're kind of moving that there. So
Yeah.
last year, where we kind of separated out Empower and workforce, you know, we had Empower before we had workforce development,
Yeah.
right? So we've been committing to that program for years. And so now we're kind of just rolling that in, so overall, it's kind of combining those, and so our overall spend is gonna be, you know, quite a bit less than it was last year, and so that's kind of where, those are the 2 big drivers of the differences of
Just-
our
Just a
projected
side
budget.
question on the workforce development. Do we see with greater numbers of various ethnic groups coming into Rochester, the impact on housing certainly, but training them to go to work? Do we see that as a factor in workforce development?
I mean, again, I would defer to, you know, Anna and what she's seeing from the programs and the results of those
Yeah.
things.
We are,
Because they're gonna need jobs, they're gonna need housing.
yes, so with Empower, in terms of like refugee populations and migrant, I don't know that there's a connection there specifically, but I know that with the Ibero American Action League, we're in a 3-year contract with them.
And
They're doing tremendous work with, helping bridge language barriers, providing housing assistance and workforce training. And they're also connected to, there are bridges from their programs to MCC's programs as well, so there's a breadcrumb trail that kind of connects many of the disparate workforce development programs serving
already.
Bonner County and Greater Rochester, and many of those programs are in our portfolio to varying degrees,
right.
so, Catholic Charities wins awards for their service to refugee populations. I know that we've done really well with, welcoming Ukrainian migrants, and, yeah, so we do see that, like, anecdotally, but in terms of, you know, the metrics, I think Ibero is the poster child for that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and so I'll just take you through like, if you look at where we're projected at, say, a $400,000 profit this year, right?
What are we looking at now?
Again, if you look at the bottom of it, you have this one?
Yes.
The
Sorry,
big one
the
with
big
the,
one?
all the different colors.
Yeah.
And all the variances are off to the right hand
Yeah.
column. That helps, that's helpful.
Yeah, if you just look at what we're projecting a surplus of $400,000 this year. Next year, again, using round numbers, we're projecting a $1.6 million net deficit. That changes, call it $2 million. Again, focus on the big pieces here. revenue is gonna be down 2.5 million, and expenses are gonna be down 500,000. That net 2 million is what is really the two big drivers to get from a $400,000 surplus to a $1.6 million net deficit. All right, fee income down 2.5, workforce development down 5. That net 2 is the big difference in those pieces. I can get through all the other details, I don't wanna bore you, there's not enough to talk about it, so all the other pieces are almost immaterial to what we're talking about. So to close it, I would say the budget next year is a $1.6 million deficit that we're projecting based on the you know, again, those two items.
Those are the primary drivers.
Yeah. And I would say, you know, and if you're talking about pages, you know, page 4, the workforce development summary, that is really meant to just show you, because that is a big expense item.
I was happy to see that.
Yeah, and
Because I'm never quite sure.
credit Allison, she, and this is hard, because it's hard to,
Very hard.
it's very hard to work with the groups that may not have the infrastructure that we generally like to see, for them to commit on when are you gonna have your programs in place, when do you expect us having to pay you, because now the interest rates, they're going the other way, but now the interest rates are significant. We wanna maximize our return, so we're trying to figure out how much cash that we need in the short term to maybe invest into T-bills, or, you know, need the cash to support these programs. So we put all of our programs on a piece of paper, kind of actually did it by month. You don't see it by month here, but we put it by month, but this kind of shows you, hey, this is what we're anticipating, 2.285 in payments in 24, and the 2.183 in 25. But this is really just supplementary that ties to our budget and then what we anticipate. Just because it was our largest expense, we wanted to provide a little bit more transparency until you could see what that looks like.
Now, the MCC Empower is on this list also?
Yeah.
Where is it?
It's the last one.
Oh, there we go. Empower.
They're kind of in order that they came into us.
Yes. Thanks for getting this all organized. Allison and Greg. Okay, anything else on that? Greg, or questions from anyone?
No, I think, like I said,
You've
overall.
touched on all the significant impacts, budget impacts.
And again, the detail behind it, what the explanations are there if you want it. Well, like I said, I think.
Oh, tell us about the payroll. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I think the payroll, again, a couple things. If we're looking at projected this year to what we have budgeted, remember we have 2 full-time people that we added during the year that we didn't budget for. You know, I don't remember where that came in, that we decided. Yeah, it came before the board, but.
Right.
But that's why we're significantly over what we have budgeted this year. And then next year, if you look at, hey, we're at projection 466 to 479, it's basically up to a 5% increase depending on how the county raises come out and all that other stuff. That's it.
How would they come out? Do we know what they would be?
No.
They typically, so the way raises work is there's a chart of steps. And so we follow the same thing. So if you're at the top of your grade, you don't get a step, but they do tend, it's usually a 2% increase on the prices. So some people will get 2%, some people, if they're getting a step, they will actually get 4% because there's a step and the salaries go up 2%.
And we'll get the new numbers.
Yeah, we don't get that till the budget gets passed with the county.
So in the November timeframe, we'll get a picture of what that matrix is going to look like.
So that we can be comfortable with our organization.
Yes.
Our procedures are kind of the same for raises and.
Pardon?
Our procedures are the same for county, as the county for raises and reviews.
Any other questions, you know, Ann or anyone else that wants a little bit more detail on any kind of, you know, I think the only other item.
What's the Sally budget? What is that?
Sorry.
Same as last year.
Just so you know, when I first started in accounting, I'm gonna tell you a little story.
I don't think we have time.
I was a junior accountant and someone said, hey, just Sally. I'm like, okay, and I kept on looking around like, hey, does anyone know where the Sally sits? I had no idea that Sally meant same as last year, but that's kind of a general term.
That's very funny.
I didn't know it.
I did not know that until this
I
year.
know.
I just learned that
Sorry,
myself.
so I didn't mean to,
Right.
I put some acronyms in here and I shouldn't have, but I do.
We're all senior accountants
Who is
now.
Sally and where is she?
Where is she? Because everyone keeps mentioning the Sally individual. I don't even see her name on the
Same
directory.
as last year.
She's got a good thing going.
Yeah.
All right, anything else there?
And I think that's it.
The people that we've hired,
Mhm.
what was that? Was that 30,000 with oversight of our finances and so on?
High probability advisors.
Yeah,
Yes, $30,000.
is that in here somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where is it?
Where do they go?
They are in investment services,
Which is,
probably,
Towards the
down
bottom.
towards the
Yeah.
bottom,
Like
the
under
bottom,
accounting fees.
after financial services.
yeah, there it is.
And Robin and Allison are in dialogue with them about next steps and scope of work. That'll be good for us and constructive in the next
Right.
year,
Right.
especially as we have these conversations about our financial outlook.
and then the only other thing different maybe was there was an expense that I believe has been approved for the Mindex database,
An additional 50.
additional 15 that we have engaged them to kind of clean that up for us.
That's a good thing.
Which
Is that the Apex?
No,
Yeah,
Apex is PTAC.
Oh, yeah, that's
So,
right.
sorry.
Mindex is a software development company, a local software development company that we have engaged with to
I see that,
modernize
yeah.
our project tracking system. So ultimately, the goal is to make staff's lives easier during the Paris reporting season. So there's not so much manual labor involved and there's a smart system that's plug and play, and that's worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely.
So that assumes the weekends you guys get together, there's more drinking included.
Yes,
Less
right.
work.
More drinking, less
work, more
data
data.
Oh,
The
boy.
idea.
Will that be in place by the spring? Like,
Yeah.
Yep. Now, we're gonna have to see whether we can actually use it this year for Paris reporting, but we will be getting it ready for at least for the next year, so.
All right, did we answer any questions on the Workforce Development Fund? Talked about the changes to that? Guess not, so are we moving?
I have a small comment that I could make, just that, I got some good news today from Rochester Works that one of the programs that we funded through Rochester Works, which is a very high-performing program, because we funded that program and made it more sustainable for that organization, they were able to secure funding from the ESL Foundation to keep it alive kind of in perpetuity, such that COMIDA will no longer have to fund it. And I see that as a case study as to, you know, we are helping these good programs
We gave them the seed money.
stay alive or, you know, bring them to life, and
Yeah.
then they can
take over.
grow legs and obtain funding elsewhere, right? Because we're not a foundation, but we do exist to support economic and workforce development. So anyways, I just thought that was an interesting
That is
piece of information, yeah.
Okay, does that take us on to anything else, Greg?
I don't think so. I think the only, I'm not sure it's for this committee, is that we're basically at the end of the workforce development commitments. I think we've, based on what we talked about, have, don't quote me on this, sorry, $7 million, we have generated to set aside. We're close to all of our funds being committed, so if there are things additional programs that come before the board, we're out of money until the board either reallocates additional funds to that or decides to do something.
That's a good question.
So just something to consider. Now, we do have,
Well,
it's
we
10%
had a
of,
couple million to start it up.
Greg, what did we change, did what was the increase last year for workforce development?
So we always do 10%, and then at the end of the year, or the January of the next year, we've been bringing to the board if we had an excessive revenue year, we've
Like
been
a big
asking for an extra
project.
20.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha,
So
okay.
We
the
had a
last
big
couple years
fee
we've
come
been
in
putting
from
30%.
Andrews Terrace,
Yeah.
and then we put a heaping helping of that fee into the workforce development fund. This year, if we close on the Fairlife project, there's a potential for us to be able to add horsepower to the workforce development fund. Otherwise, we'll maintain status quo with the 10%. And the administration's aware of that too. And I'm trying to temper expectations, because a lot of these organizations, when they come to us once, they just want to keep coming back to the well, and I have to remind them that we are not a foundation, that, this is all dependent on project activity, and if we're having a soft year, that means the workforce development fund is going to be on the not as powerful and robust towards the end of the year. But we've gone through $7 million plus since 2022 when the fund was established to support many worthy programs. And I think it'd be great at some point, maybe when I deliver the annual report to the board, just to talk about the impact of the programs overall, the portfolio overall, with that $7 million since 2022.
Which is amazing.
To go along with that, the example that Rochester Works, that would be a great example for everybody to see what's going on. We'll help you, we'll provide some seed money.
Proof of concept, and then you can go out into the marketplace and attract follow-on funding. That's exactly what they did with the on-the-job training and the enhanced recovery services program that we funded. So it's good stuff. And I think moving ahead into the new year, dependent on the Tech Hubs initiative and the appetite of the administration, we might want to look at shovel-ready entering into conversations about shovel-ready site development. Many other IDAs all throughout the state are engaged in that type of work, and COMIDA historically has not been, because Bonner County is very developed. We don't have, a 500-acre greenfield site necessarily that we can just acquire and turn into an industrial mega park, but I think there are opportunities for us to improve the acreage that we own in the town of Riga, for example, and we're working with our colleagues up in the Department of Environmental Services and GIS to look at other opportunities, and maybe we'll bring some ideas to this board around shovel-ready site development at some point in 2025, knock on wood, dependent on the economic outlook and our financial situation.
There are areas that can be developed, but they lack electricity.
Correct. Yes.
So is that any sort of an initiative for us to
Yes.
be the
Conduit to
the
that.
conduit?
Yes, so similar to what we did with the Fairlife project in Webster, where we accepted funds from the state that ultimately are going to Rochester Gas and Electric to shore up the utilities at the site. That was literally what clinched the deal for Fairlife and Coca-Cola. You see those issues everywhere, notably in the town of Henrietta. Stay tuned, there's conversations happening
already.
above my head about Henrietta and COMIDA's role that we can play in that, not with our money and our resources, but with state dollars.
Right.
But yes, it all kind of hinges on utilities, and power is the most important, but there's also wastewater infrastructure and sewer connections, all those types of things. And we have access to a lot of valuable information through DES here in the county, and we're working on putting some fun maps together right now and seeing, you know, are there opportunities for us as COMIDA to really roll up our sleeves and get involved in industrial site development to position ourselves for the next Fairlife type project, where there won't be as many stumbling blocks in the negotiation phase, and we can easily just clinch a deal because we have a pad site ready for
Right.
a mega
Makes us
project.
look attractive.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Then.
That's like what the Ohios and the, you know, Indianas of the world are doing, and we wanna get more competitive here in New York, so.
Could I say something a little off the topic? So in my short time on the board, this is about you guys, this is about staff and the things that you've brought to Monroe County. And you're to be commended for that. I think that when I first started, I made some mistakes. But at the end of the day, and I'm talking about Amazon, at the end of the day, 70% is better than 0%. And so the discussion that seems to go on is about, I'm thinking, even if it's less than 70%, there's more local labor that's getting work. And I just kind of want to remind everybody, because there's one loud voice that talks about, very focused on local labor, but I think that what you are all doing is enhancing local labor. And I think that we all need to remember that, because that's important.
Well said.
You know, because we might not have Fairlife or Amazon.
Well said.
Thank you for saying that.
And
We're proud
I
of
think
you.
I said, like before, when I was here, what this organization is today, what it was 3 years ago,
Yeah.
it's totally different. It is a total, 3-4 years back.
How about 20 years ago?
Fair, but it's totally changed. It's just totally, the landscape, the work that these folks do, Alice and Robin especially, because I work with them the closest, is not even close to what it was 3 years ago. It's just so much complicated. The volume is more, the projects are bigger, the spotlight is bigger, right? The things that Anna has to do with, you know, the kind of the political landscape, it's just bigger and it's harder. And again, it's totally different than where it was a few years ago.
And they're handling it very well.
Very well. Like I said, again, you look at, you compare these numbers to other IDAs. I haven't done that in a few years, but I don't even think they're close.
Thank
In
you for
terms
saying
of
that.
overall net
Right.
profitability, right, or revenues over expenses, and then the impact that we make and what our balance sheet looks like, I don't even think it's relatively close across the state. And that's important.
Yeah, so you're saying that beyond 3 years ago, we wouldn't have had an Amazon or a Fairlife?
Right, we wouldn't have had it, you know.
Or
So
Lifecycle.
again, there's a lot of work that has gone on over the 3 years to get us into the position that we are, to be able to support future things, ready sites, all these other things, but it's really been a testament to.
Anything moving on Lifecycle?
Stay tuned.
What's that?
Stay tuned. Yeah. Life Cycle is potentially going to be on our October agenda for an extension of their sales tax package as they work to reactivate the project and secure and close on that the loan that was offered to them from the Federal Department of Energy. So again, tempering expectations, because you never know. That's what we expect. But yes, a project that was the mega project before there was a Fairlife, and kinda got eclipsed by Fairlife, and then the project went dark, and now we're having conversations about a reactivation, so it's exciting. And thanks for the kind words about staff, I can't say enough to echo those kind words about, Robin and Allison and Rachel.
I
It's-
echo that.
Yeah, and thank you to the board for empowering staff to help, pivot and be nimble and allowing them to work hard, I'm not a micromanager, and we just so happen to have a really talented bench of folks here, so it's like management of COMIDA by a council of women. So it's working out really well.
Whispering women.
executive
Yeah,
director,
whispering.
you know? Yeah, I know. Keeping an eye on that.
Yeah,
Without you, we wouldn't, I'd be this far.
well, thanks for saying that, but yeah, it takes a village.
Okay, how about the investment summary? Were we ready to move on to that, or any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I think for this, at a very high level, tried to just show, two buckets. Hey, what has matured since we started this? How much and what we've earned on those maturities? A mix of bills and notes over time. And then the unmatured securities are what we have today in our portfolio, about $16 million that vary at different times, basically every 3 months, right, in our laddering process, that we currently are going out to April of 2026 at a decent rate. I think it was 3.75. Those rates right now, if we would have looked at those rates right now, I think they're like 3.25, because obviously the rates are going down. So when we bought that note, we're earning at least a half a point better than what it is today, because we're going out to 2 years or 18 months, what that looks like. Other than that, like we talked about, 8 high probability advisors will be taking this on. We'll be working with them to really, they'll be reporting and kind of handling all the purchase and redemptions. I will be handling with Allison our cash flow needs, because that's really the big factor is, what's our 3 months, 6 months cash flow needs look like, and then we decide on whether we need to buy a 3-year, 6-year, whatever that may be. So we're working through that transition right now, and hopefully we'll have something done in the next quarter and things like that. But overall, I think you can see that this is kind of the culmination. This is a good way to end it. This is kind of the culmination of the hard work over the last 3 or 4 years. Where before we never, not that we didn't have excess cash, because we did, but again, to be able to take, $16 million of funds that we can invest, especially in a high interest rate environment that we have been in, to earn
Timing was great.
4 to 5% on those dollars that goes back into our, right? That's not, we haven't restricted that for any reasons that others may have wanted us to or talked about, but that's just really going into our current working capital needs. If anyone felt, or the board or the finance felt, that we should set aside those earnings for other things, but right now we're really putting it back as unrestricted purposes, and mainly I would say a chunk of that's still going towards workforce development. And
I was going to say to fund our initiatives.
For sure.
Yeah.
Unrestricted, right? We're not.
Right.
Greg, I have a question. So we're restricted in what we can invest in. Most likely, it's not going to be anything different than what's been going on before. High probability. Correct? Personally, are you happy about that? Does it help you and Allison do what you do, or I'm curious.
This is a tough question. Happy may not be the right word. Again, at the end of the day, you know, do I think a lot of things are gonna be different? No, but if it gives the board more comfort that someone who does this on a day-to-day basis is overseeing this, I'm all for that, right? So, if that spend is, you know, I don't know if minimal is the right word, but if you said, okay, $30,000 for the board, whoever, that helps them sleep at night, because there's some risk, you just never know. So this is a high profile, you know, and it's got some spotlight on what we're doing, and if that helps people, you know, kinda sleep at night and those things, I'm all for that, right? This is not anything ever that myself or Robin or Alistair or I or whoever said, oh, we wanna do this and not, like, it was never about that. Like, hey, we think we need to do this because we wanna have greater control. No, it was, we put this forth. Wasn't a lot of action taken for a variety of reasons, and, we're here, what we're at. I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good.
Here. Yeah, we'll see, it'll be a good experiment, I shouldn't call it an experiment, but as we look ahead into the next year, let's see how it goes and make another decision down the road.
It's a pilot
Yes.
program.
Yes, right.
So I guess we're to the point where we're ready to call for the approval of next year's budget, 2025 budget. Anything we need to add to that, Rachel, other than that's
No.
what we're doing?
I think that works.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the new 2025 budget as proposed. Thank you, Red, and the second by Lisa. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Well done, guys, thank you. Very concise.
Yes, that was within the hour.
Yes, look at us.
We're so smart. No, we have a terrific finance.
Oh, yeah.
What,
So, Ann and Lisa, before you showed up, we were having a conversation with Rhett and Howard. The county legislature's agenda for tonight has come out, gone public, and the president of the legislature has included a referral for introduction tonight that appoints a new member to this board to fill the vacancy left by Jay, a gentleman by the name of Truman Tolfree. And he is, his wife's name is Erin Tolfree, she's the CEO of Baldwin Richardson Foods,
And then Greg can
which is headquartered in Wayne County. They reside in Monroe County.
What's the name again?
I'm gonna send this to you.
So like
Truman
that,
Tolfree.
that, and that.
Truman, Toll-free is spelled Tolefree. So that'll be introduced this evening and it will go through.
I grabbed the wrong one. These two, this is what these two are.
Legislature's committee cycle in the next month and adoption in
let me
November.
send it to you.
So
So-
have we met?
Let me send
Can we
it.
just have a little conversation a little
Certainly.
bit?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Okay.
I have not personally met him nor been privy to conversations about his appointment.
Has anyone, Adam?
I don't know, Robin and I met with Jeff McCann and Amy Grower yesterday, and that's when we learned that this was in motion.
So they're gonna vote before we meet.
No, there's no vote.
There's no vote tonight.
It's being introduced
I
for
see.
the next cycle. So it'll go through committees at the end of the month, and then
So we'll have an opportunity to provide input.
sure, if you want to.
We've always said that we like collaboration and it works better when we do. So I think we would stand on that concept. So.
I can tell you that as a member of the legislature,